Hello anyone and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney, where we have just done another jury summation examination. That's the second one this trial, and we're presumably continuing, so let's see where this goes. Now then, Lord Van Zeeks, how does the prosecution wish to proceed? This trial is rapidly descending into a farce. Smash it? No? Like a corked wine, the first few sips are bitter enough. Yeah! But what follows is so repugnant it's good for nothing save the gutter. If I may, Lord Van Zeeks, the defence has just put forward a credible alternative explanation for what happened. Really weird that he's on our side now. Credible. Is that your considered opinion, Mr. Foreman? The defence's argument is a joke to which I barely know how to respond, but let me start by insisting that you must all familiarise yourselves better with the relative positions of those places being discussed. I mean, to be fair, it would be pretty hard to get the knife into her back from that point. What do you mean by that? What's his angle this time? It should already be more than apparent that between the crime scene and the Garadeb household runs a rather wide street, Briar Road. Which means that the distance from the Garadeb's house to the scene is some, yes, 15 yards. Let me see, 15 yards. That's around 14 metres. But 14 metres? Oh, that's a little further than I'd imagined. And as you ladies and gentlemen of the jury rightly noted as having portentous significance, the fourth book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, the smouldering book wantonly hurled by the lady of the house travelled some 15 yards to land on the opposite side of the road, neatly between the collapsed victim's fingers and thumb. Is that your final conclusion, my learned and deluded friend? I mean, my guess at this point is that someone messed with the scene. Did the jackknife follow a near-identical trajectory to plunge into the middle of the victim's back? This fantasy is somewhat stretching the notion of having a bad day for the victim, I think. Even those pathetic serialized detective stories have more believable plots. There's nothing I can say to that. That prosecutor loves the sound of his own voice. Miss Sazato. Serialized detective stories are pathetic, are they? How dare he? I wondered if someone was going to get up in arms about that. Maybe let's pick our battles here. My lord, might I be allowed to speak? As judicial assistant, you may speak for the defence. Yes, go ahead. The prosecution may consider the idea of fantasy, but what the defence has postulated was believable enough to persuade the jury to change its leaning. And as such, the court has a duty to explore this alternative explanation as thoroughly as possible. To that end, juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Garadeb, must be called to testify and submit to cross-examination. Saints alive! A cross-examination of a juror? Well, if you all pick them so horribly that they're clearly involved with the case, then yes. Order. Well, this is highly irregular. It is unprecedented for a member of the jury to be summoned to the witness stand.
Objection!
Oh dear. And unnecessary. Lord Van Zeeks. There are already witnesses in the stand whose testimony the defence may further cross-examine. If my learned friend's farcical theory has any truth in it, then both a burning book and a jackknife must have flown through the sky before this couple's eyes. And we must assume they would be able to testify accordingly. What say you, witness? Yes, sir. Constable Rolly Beat reporting for duty, sir. Well, Good morning, officer. Sorry for dozing until now, sir. I haven't slept for a month on account of a villain who's appeared on my beat, sir. Oh, they are so heroic, these London bobbies. Patricia, my darling, I've been neglecting you, but no more. Oh, Rolly, my hero, you make me swoon. Very well, I hereby reject the defence's request. Oh. And order the witnesses in the stand to testify again. State forthwith before the court any details pertaining to the defence's alternative explanation of events. Yes, sir. Well, at least he's awake now. I assume that'll be rubbish for us, but it's a change. This case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb. Believe me, a London bobby is good for his word. You see, sir, the windows on the top floor of the Garadeb house are top-hinged casements. Obviously, if anything had been thrown out of the window, we would have seen it. I did leave the scene to go and fetch help, but my trusty Rolly was there to make sure nothing was disturbed. You mean as he was lying face down in the snow? I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for one moment, sir. Nothing strange to report on that front, sir. Yay? Well, this is quite startling. Top-hinged casement windows. That detail was not in the police report, Constable. Yes, sorry about that. I must have been a little drowsy. Ahem. You cannot excuse your sins with drowsiness every time, Constable. No, sir. Sorry, but... what exactly is a top-hinged casement window? And you... you cannot excuse your ignorance with such trite remarks, my learned friend. Of course. Sorry. I found it, Mr. Naruhodo. Cast your mind back to the windows in Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb's room. Alright, I'll try. So the window opens in order to allow air to circulate inside the house. But as it's a top-hinged casement window, it swings open along the upper edge, you see. I'm glad you've rectified your ignorance. A casement window's most prominent feature is its stay, a metal bar which prevents the window from being opened beyond a certain amount. It prevents it opening? This is all news to me. Absolutely correct, sir. In other words, if a book or knife were to have been thrown through the open window, it would have clattered against the pane and fallen straight down to the pavement below. No. You see the problem then? Good. Your education in windows is complete. There was never any possibility of either the book or the knife travelling 15 yards over the road. That is, unless the window pane had been shattered, something we've discounted already. That can't be! Did you see that, Rolly? That young Japanese man just collapsed in agony. Oh yes, my darling, I saw it. I saw how he crumbled before me. Oh, Rolly, you're so strong! Okay. How is this happening? I haven't even started the cross-examination yet, and already my argument's been destroyed. Counsel, if you could drag yourself upright again, the court awaits your cross-examination. My lord. Oh good, another desperate situation. Yeah, we do seem to specialise in those.
Hold it!
How can you say that for certain? A very good question, sir. And the answer is this. It has the noble founding principles of the force written on it as a reminder to all us policemen of our sworn duty. He showed us that before, didn't he? Did he? I can't say I remember. To patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of the common man. It's what the job's all about. And that is why I can stand here today beside my long-suffering wife and tell you a Bobby's good for his word. While rubbing my tired eyes admittedly. Sir. Oh, Rolly, you're so manly. Of course I am, my darling Patricia. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. Oh, patrolly beats. Dear Lord. No, none of this is what I meant. I meant, how can you say for certain that this case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb? Ah, I see, sir. You should have said so earlier, sir. Yes, well, so could you answer the question? That was a waste of time, then. Absolutely, sir. I will answer it to the fullest of my abilities, sir. There's a surprising reason why Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb's domestic dispute can't be related to this case. But before I get into that, sir, just one thing. Oh boy. Yes? I'd very much like you and all your countrymen to understand the great British institution of Scotland Yard. So I hope you'll take back some tales of us London bobbies and how we uphold our guiding principles. I wasn't planning on going back just yet. I've only just arrived here. So to that end, sir, I'd be happy to lend you my warrant card for your perusal. But I must warn you, you won't be able to get through it without shedding a few tears. Thank you. I'll try. Okay. Let's have a look at that then. I'm going to press this first so I don't accidentally present something, but... Strive to preserve the peace within his allotted beat, expected to walk 20 miles for furtherance of community relations. Any crimes fall under the duration of a beat in which they are discovered. When a crime is discovered, the policeman must assist with initial investigation and help detectives. Okay, so there doesn't seem to be anything helpful, but... By which you mean they don't fully open, is that correct? Yes, sir. They're just there to allow a bit of air through the house, you see, so they're restricted as to how much they open. And therefore anything thrown out of the window from inside the room would simply strike the pane and fall to the street directly below. For clarity, allow me to mark the map. Here is the location where objects would have fallen. Yes. Directly opposite the scene of the crime, on the other side of the rather wide road. Would it have been so hard for somebody to mention this top-hinged casement thing before? Well, I have another question for you, Constable. And what would that be, sir? How'd you even know? Why would you have any idea what sort of windows Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb's house is furnished with? Ah, well, sir, that's very simple. You see, I helped with the investigation yesterday.
Excuse me!
Do you have something to add, Mrs. Beat? Sorry? You look, well, delighted. Is there some particular reason for that? Oh, I was just remembering. That's all. We really were so lucky. Lucky? What do you mean? Well, of course I feel terrible for the poor woman who was attacked. Don't misunderstand me, please. We were just so lucky it didn't happen on Rowley's beat. It was so close, you see. Oh, I hadn't realised. Oh yes, that street, Briar Road. That's the boundary between Rowley's beat and the next one. Isn't that right, my love? So did it happen on the other side of the road, which would have been on his beat? So they moved it across the road so that they could have their anniversary dinner. That's my current bet. Constable Beat. Oh, yes, that's right. That's the reason I was helping out with interviewing the occupants of the Garadeb household yesterday. Their house is on my beat, you see, sir. That really was cutting it close, then. Constable, I wonder if you could clarify something. If the Garadeb household is on your beat, does that mean that the pavement next to it is as well? Outside Mr. Garadeb's house? Yes, ma'am. The pavement on that side of the road is part of my beat. I see. I was unaware of that. Just think, if the woman had been attacked just on the other side of Briar Road, we would never have been able to go for that meal to celebrate our wedding anniversary. But that's the life of a bobby, after all. Extraordinary people are bobbies, tirelessly working for the benefit of all Londoners. Do you know what I think? I think it was the good Lord's way of rewarding my Rolly for all his hard work. Don't you think so, my darling? That must be it, Pat, my love. That must be it. I think perhaps we should make sure we have that information officially on record. Leave it to me, Mr. Naruhodo. I'll take care of it immediately. Okay. Now it's my turn, I think.
Hold it!
But according to my notes here, the sun had gone down already and it was dark. Oh, but Rolly and I were strolling along, gazing at the night sky and looking for our lucky star. Sorry. The star that will guide us to eternal happiness. Can't it guide you to answer the question? If a flaming book had cut across the sky in front of us, it would have lit up like a shooting star. If I'd seen a shooting star, I would have made a wish upon it. Let Rolly be an inspector, I would have said. 3 times at least. Of course, what with the smog and everything, we couldn't actually see any stars. In short, are you trying to say that neither a book nor a knife crossed the sky before you? Yes, sir, that is correct, sir. As sure as the night sky in London is starless, sir. It certainly seems like they're telling the truth. And then we saw the poor woman fall to the ground, so we ran straight over to help her.
Hold it!
Yes, you said that you went to a nearby police box to fetch another officer. Is that right? That's right, yes. If it had been on Rolly's beat, I would have known exactly where I was going, of course. Don't feel bad, my love. You can't be expected to know the location of every police box on every beat. So Rolly told me the way, only I sort of got a little lost on the way. Patricia, my darling, that's why I love you. Your terrible sense of direction is bewitching to me. Where can I find someone who loves my terrible sense of direction? Oh, please. Yeah, that's my reaction at this point. So I suppose I was gone for about 15 minutes. But like I said, my Rolly was at the scene the whole time, making sure nothing was disturbed. I was off duty at the time, of course, but a true Bobby is never really off duty, sir.
Hold it!
Nothing to report. That's correct, sir. I had my eyes wide open the entire time, never looked away for a second. No one else approached the scene and nothing was removed from it. I can swear to that on the yard's honour, sir. Really? That seems a little strange. Beg your pardon, sir. Strange, sir, seems altogether regular to me. This burnt copy of The Lion's Pride was originally in the Garrideb household. So the question remains, how did it find its way into the hand of the victim? Can you shed any light on that, seeing as you were at the scene of the crime the entire time? Aha! Could it be a different copy, sir? One that just happened to be burnt as well? Even if that were possible, why would the victim have been gripping a book like that in her hand? As we can see from this photographic print, she had a bag over her shoulder. Well, sir, that book was in the lady's hand from the moment we arrived at the scene. Is that so? There's something about this statement that's not sitting right with me. The two mysteries of how that knife ended up in her back and how that book ended up in her hand. There must be some common thread between them. Can I ask you something? Please, Mr. Lawyer, sir? Oh, yes, of course. What is it? You're doubting us, aren't you? I can tell. What? I wasn't really. I mean, what's she doing? Please, just because I'm a woman, it doesn't make my testimony any less valuable. You might just see me as the wife of a policeman, but I'm a woman of my word, I am. I really don't remember ever suggesting that I doubted you. No excuses, I don't want to hear it. My voice will be heard. My lord, you'll let me speak, won't you? Yes, Mrs. Beat, I will allow you to supplement your testimony if you so desire. Sometimes the path of least resistance is the sage one. That was a very loud mutter. I heard that! That Japanese man thinks a policeman's wife's word counts for nothing, does he? Well, watch out, sir. I might let you get away with something like that, but my Rolly won't. Duly noted, Mrs. Beat. Please, I humbly ask you to continue. What could she possibly be about to say, I wonder? I know what I saw. My eyes never let me down. My sense of direction is a little off sometimes, though. So I need to press that, presumably. I'm so sorry, Mr. Naruhodo. I had no right to speak out. What do you mean? I requested that the cross-examination of Mrs. Garadeb without consulting you. Even if the judge did deny me. Oh, I see. Well, I agree with you. We do need testimony from Mrs. Garadeb. If we're ever going to get to the truth of this matter. Do you really think so? Well, think about it. No matter how far it is across the road or how that window opens. Mr. Garadeb's book found its way to the scene of the crime somehow, didn't it? You're right. And then there was Mrs. Garadeb's reaction to me showing her the knife. The woman's hiding something, I'm sure of it. You're right again. We need to use this cross-examination to uncover more clues. We'll get to the bottom of this one way or another, I swear. Yes.
Hold it!
Mrs. Beat, nobody is questioning what you've told us. I saw it, I did. That evening I saw it clearly. That little Easter man with the whiskers and the funny curved back slinking away from the scene. Huh. And I know what I didn't see as well. I didn't see any flaming books or knives flying through the sky. All very clear. You also mentioned something about having a poor sense of direction. Oh, yes, well, that's a little embarrassing, really. I'm always ending up at the wrong place when I made arrangements to meet Rolly. He gets ever so cross.
Excuse me!
Constable Beat, is there a problem? Eh? No sir, no problem, sir. Did your wife's remarks just now bring something to mind, perhaps? Oh, well, in a way, sir. Yes, sir. I was just remembering the same thing happened that evening is all. You mean Mrs. Beat lost her way on the night of the incident? Well, you see, I sent her off to find a police box in the next beat over from mine. But she was gone a fair bit longer than what I was expecting. I thought she'd be back inside 10 minutes, but my darling was gone a good 15. Oh, Rolly, you're such a tease. But the reason I was so long was because of the bouquet, silly. The bouquet? Sorry, what bouquet are you talking about? Oh, it was a present for our wedding anniversary. Rolly's so romantic. He saved up for it with farthings and halfpennies he found in the gutter while doing his rounds. Yes, how romantic. I'd forgotten all about it until just now. Had you, my darling? Ah. Ah, oh yes. But that was just between us. No talking about it to anyone else, darling. You have to promise. Really? Oh. What was that all about? Constable Beat looked very obviously troubled during that exchange. I'm afraid I can't offer any useful insight, Mr. Naruhodo. But I'm quite sure of one thing. We have to ask Mrs. Beat about the bouquet. Mrs. Beat, this bouquet you just mentioned. I'd like you to add details about it to your testimony, please. Oh, really? Yes, I'd love to. What happened was I dropped my bouquet and ended up losing my way for a while. Okay.
Hold it!
You mean you dropped the bouquet at the scene of the crime? Yes, that's right. Oh, I was so upset. When we ran over and saw it was a woman with a knife in her back. I was so shocked I dropped the bouquet Rolly gave me. So did she drop it under the Garadeb's window, and that's how we know it was on that side of the road? It was in a dark spot where the streetlights weren't casting any light, so I didn't notice at first. And then you went to the police box to report it to the policeman whose beat it was on. Yes, and I came back to the scene together with the other constable, you see. That's when I spotted my bouquet again, but the funny thing was, when I went to pick it up, it was nowhere near the victim's body at all. In case you need reminding, Mrs. Beat, the victim is not deceased. I was all flustered for a moment before I heard a voice calling me from the other side of the road. Your husband, presumably. That's right, silly me, I'd gone over to the wrong side of the street. Although, I'm going to blame the bouquet this time. I can't think how it got there, I really can't. So the bouquet somehow moved from one side of Borough Road to the opposite. It wasn't the bouquet, it was the body, wasn't it? Curious indeed. Isn't it? But the worst of it is I forgot to pick the bouquet up again when we left the scene. That beautiful rose really brought me, with that change from the gutter he spent so long collecting. By bouquet, do you perhaps mean this sorry solitary rose? Oh! Oh, yes, that's it! That's the bouquet Roly bought me for our anniversary, with old bits of change she found in the gutter. Maybe just call it a rose. Tell us, Lord Van Zeeks, why did you come by the flower? According to the report by the police officer in charge of the crime scene investigation, it was found on the edge of the pavement in front of the Garadeb household. In front of the Garadeb's house? Although it wasn't noticed until the morning, as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. It was believed to be of no relevance to the case, since it was found on the opposite of the thoroughfare. Oh, thank you, sir, thank you. Could I have it back now, please? No, I think for good measure, this rose should be added to the court record as evidence. Oh. Okay. Let's have a look at that. An English rose. It's such a beautiful flower. Ah, this is a rose, is it? I've never seen one before. Do you not take an interest in flowers, Mr. Naruhodo? I wouldn't say that exactly, but I do know 3 types at least. Gosh, 3? Yes, plum blossom, peach blossom, and cherry blossom. Perhaps you should consider branching out, learning some that aren't fruit tree based, for example. Okay, so is there anything else helpful on here? I don't really think so. Oh, here we go. It's very stylish paper the flower's wrapped in, isn't it? It's just an old newspaper, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, I suppose it's because I'm not used to seeing English print. It looks so exotic to me. Ah, I see. Is something wrong? Oh, no. I was just thinking that if you wrapped a stone-baked sweet potato in English newspaper, it might look like some sort of fancy cake. Ah, Susato-san, you do love your cakes. Mood. Okay, well that wasn't terribly helpful, but... I want it back after the trial. Do you hear me? I want it back. Good grief. Rest assured that I shall do my very best not to forget, Mrs. Beat. I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for one moment, sir. Nothing strange to report on that front, sir. I don't really know what to do with that. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, what do you make of all this? Yes. The whole idea of an invisible attacker has been troubling me all along. But I believe I'm starting to get a picture of what really happened here now. The 4th book that had no business being at the scene of the crime made me sure that Mrs. Garadeb was hiding something from us. But it's becoming increasingly clear that someone else has been hiding something from us as well. I think I may already be armed with everything I need to strike a decisive blow here. Yeah, I know what I need to present, I'm just not sure when. This time it's going to expose the whole truth about this mysterious affair. I'm gonna try it here.
Objection!
Okay, this looks promising. You claim, Constable Beat, there was nothing to report in the 15 or so minutes you were guarding the scene. But that cannot be. What do you mean to say? In your testimony just now, Mrs. Beat, you explained to the court that when you arrived back at the scene of the crime with the policeman assigned to that beat, the bouquet you had dropped at the victim's side was no longer anywhere nearby.
Objection!
Yes, on the opposite side of Briar Road to where the victim was attacked. But considering the size of that meagre bouquet, if a single sorry bloom can be so described, no doubt it was blown in the wind across the street back into the gutter where it belongs. Meagre?
Objection!
But if that were the case, why did Constable Beat not testify to the fact? No one else approached the scene, and nothing was removed from it. Constable Beat swore to that on Scotland Yard's honour. But the bouquet belonged to me. It has nothing to do with the case. That's why Rowley didn't mention it, I'm sure. No, because sadly, it's not only your bouquet we're talking about here. More than one thing in this case is mysteriously the wrong way round. What are you talking about? Think about it. Besides Mrs. Beat's bouquet, there's Mr. Garrideb's book. Mr. Garrideb's copy of The Lion's Pride, which was thrown out of the window by his wife, would have struck the pane of the casement window and landed here on the west side of the street. And yet, it was actually found here, on the opposite side of the road, in the victim's hand. Meanwhile, according to the testimony we've heard, Mrs. Beat's bouquet should have been dropped here at the scene of the crime, on the east side of the street. But in fact, it was actually found here, on the opposite side of the road, in front of Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb's house. There's no logical explanation for those things, unless somebody deliberately moved them. What are you trying to say? The way you're talking, it sounds like you think my Rowley's done something wrong. Don't you listen to a word that scrawny lawyer says. Wittering on about books and bouquets, why should we care? It's nitpicking, that's what it is. Oh good, Mrs. Garrideb's come round. You might call it nitpicking, Mrs. Garrideb, but deliberately meddling with the scene of a crime is a criminal offence. It's called, tampering, Mr. Naruhodo. But the person responsible for this tampering cannot admit to it, for a very subtle but compelling reason.
Objection!
Tampering? You've barely heard the term before. Tell us, my learned friend, who would possibly have had cause to carry out such an elaborate deception? Yes, there is someone who tampered with the scene of the crime that evening. All the evidence and all the testimony points to that one particular person. Counsel, I must demand that you substantiate this conjecture. Who are you saying is responsible for tampering with the scene of the crime? I think it's you.
Take that!
Obviously, there's only one person it could have been. Constable Rowley Beat, it was you. What? A policeman? A member of Scotland Yard? What nonsense! Why would my Rowley do something like that? There's no one straighter than my husband. No Bobby works more tirelessly for the people of London. Mrs. Beat, you said in your testimony that your husband asked you to go to a nearby police box to fetch the officer on duty. The 15 minutes that you were absent from the scene is the only opportunity anyone had to tamper with it. You're making it up. It's all nonsense. It's all lies. What about that Japanese man with the whiskers? I bet it was him. He did it.
Objection!
If that was true, Constable Beat would have seen him do it. Oh. And forgive me for pointing it out, but when you dropped your bouquet, Mrs. Beat, it was after the defendant had fled the scene. Oh, well.
Objection!
First you make accusations about the landlord and his wife, and now you incriminate a policeman as well. But your accusations lack one very important thing. You claim the crime scene was tampered with. But there is only one reason anyone would commit such a reckless crime: to hide something. That's right, he's right. But my husband and I just happened to be there, that's all. So why would we have anything to hide? It doesn't make sense. You weren't hiding, but you were trying to avoid your responsibility. You've often no motive for this alleged tampering. And until you do, your accusations are nothing but empty threats. Constable Beat had a very good reason for wanting to tamper with the scene of the crime. That's the key to this entire affair. Mr. Naruhodo, have you managed to solve this mystery? Counsel, you have made a very serious accusation against a London police officer. If you're mistaken, I'm sure I need not point out that your reputation as a lawyer will be irrevocably damaged. With that stark warning in mind, you will now explain to the court the motive of this alleged tampering. Yes, my lord. Constable Beat's motive for tampering with the crime scene was to hide. Where the victim fell. Where the victim fell to the ground. That is what this Bobby had to cover up at all costs. What? Where the victim fell? You mean where she was attacked? What are you talking about? We told you at the very start, didn't we? On the pavement of Briar Road. We saw it happen, remember? It was right here, as if anyone didn't already know. That's certainly what everyone has been led to believe. But in fact, that isn't where the victim was stabbed at all. What? What? I'm beginning to wonder where this tumultuous trial will end, Counsel. If that's your assertion, then the court is dying to know, my friend. Where are you proposing that the crime actually took place that evening?
Take that!
But that's on the opposite side of the road. I don't understand. On the evening in question, Mr. Gardab's book fell directly down from the open window above, and your bouquet, Mrs. Beat, never moved at all. What did move was the scene of the crime itself. Good gracious!
Objection!
Perhaps you haven't been listening to the ample testimony the court has heard. But these witnesses both saw the moment the attack took place. That's right, I saw it with my own eyes. It was 5 o'clock in the evening and already dark. There was the typical London fog on the ground. When you saw the incident unfold and ran to the victim's aid. That was actually on the west side of Briar Road. No, that's not true. It can't have been. Constable Beat then arranged for you to be absent for a while by sending you for help. And during the 15 minutes you were away, he transplanted the crime scene. He moved all the things shown in this print. The victim herself, the 4 books. He moved everything, in fact, to the pavement on the east side of Briar Road. Extraordinary. But the constable overlooked one thing. What? What did he overlook? The bouquet, I presume. Exactly. The prosecution told the court just a few minutes ago about the discovery of the rose bouquet. Lord Van Zeek said it wasn't noticed until the morning as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. Yes, it couldn't be seen in the dark, obviously. Which is why it was only the bouquet that was found in its original position on the pavement on the west side of Briar Road. And that is the defence's theory about what really happened that evening. How do you respond, Constable Rowley Beat? Well, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to nod off again, but I haven't slept properly in a month. Did I miss anything important? Oh, Rowley. If it isn't true, is it? What that lawyer said is all lies, isn't it? I know it is, because you're the most upstanding, righteous man I know. Well, someone's illusion is about to be shattered. I had a dream, a terrible dream. All the things I did that night. Everything come out. Everything exposed. Only it seems it wasn't a dream at all. Good golly! Order! What on earth is the meaning of all this? Oh, Broly, why? Why would you do something like this? Moving a corpse is a criminal offence, isn't it? Wishing the victim dead should be one too. Constable, explain yourself. Why would you do this? As a respected member of Scotland Yard, your duty is to protect the good people of London town. I can't say, sir. What? I really am ever so sorry about all this. For damaging the Yard's reputation. For everything. I have a possible explanation. For why, on that particular evening, Constable Beat felt compelled to move the scene of the crime. I can think of one reason. What? How could you possibly know? You, a foreigner, presuming to understand the mind of a Scotland Yard policeman. And yet, Lord Van Zeeks, it is this foreigner who has uncovered the startling truth of the matter thus far. I believe it would be beneficial to the court to hear this extraordinary young lawyer's theory. Counsel for the defence, if you please. Yes, my lord. Now then, I think you had better show us some evidence. At once, my lord. England, Japan, it makes no difference where you come from, human emotions are the same. And I think I have a fairly good idea of the feelings behind this man's actions. What gives away the motive of Constable Beat's unthinkable actions? Okay, so I can't present his wife.
Take that!
So it'll be this. I realise that I'm a foreigner in this land, and I have only just arrived from Japan. Which is why all this information about London's so-called bobbies is completely new to me. I've learnt that, though honourable, patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world, for example. Keeping the peace, looking after the citizens on his beat in all kind of ways. There's no doubt that the young bobby is charged with a great deal to do each day, certainly. But for Constable Beat, the day in question was special. Special? How? On account of this bouquet, my lord. Oh yes! It was our very first wedding anniversary. Constable Beat had worked so hard to be able to afford this simple gift for his wife, and was so looking forward to taking her out for a celebratory meal. When he and Mrs. Beat stumbled upon a crime along Briar Road. When he saw that shadowy figure through the fog collapse on the pavement ahead of them. What must have gone through the man's mind? But sir, just on that one particular day, I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. Beat puts up with a lot being married to a bobby like me. I wanted to show my dear wife how much I care. This is the warrant card that Constable Beat offered to lend to me earlier. Inside, among the rules for patrolling policemen, it says, when a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Aha! Constable Beat. Is that or is that not the reason why you moved the whole scene of the crime that day? Yes. Everything you said, it's all right. So that's it. It was all to do with the boundary of your beat. Oh! Exactly. To summarise, the incident actually occurred on Constable Beat's beat. Good gracious. Constable, do you realise the gravity of what you have done? was the first time since I became a copper that I'd ever cursed God. Stay close to me, Pat. The criminal could still be lurking somewhere. As we ran over to the scene, I had every intention of doing my duty as a police officer. We've got to report this to the station as quickly as possible. But then it dawned on me. I realised where we were, where the victim was lying, and what that meant for me. When a crime scene is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Why here? Why did this have to happen here? And why tonight of all nights? Why? It's a copper's job to guard the scene of the crime, so I told Pat she'd have to go to the nearest police box and fetch whoever was on duty there. It was then when I opened my mouth to speak. It just came out. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of my own mouth. This is the next beat to mine, Pat, so you'll have to go to the police box that covers it. Turn right along Meerschaum Street and then... I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, Constable. I just wanted, just that one night, to take my Patricia out for dinner. Oh, Rolly. Just that one night. You knew that if the incident was on your beat, your evening of celebration would be ruined. And so you decided to move the entire crime scene outside your jurisdiction. Just across the street to the east pavement of Briar Road, which falls under the neighbouring beat's care. You see, I thought... Well, I was sure the victim was dead, you see. I beg your pardon. Oh, of course he did. Otherwise my Rolly would never have left the poor woman on the freezing cold pavement. Ah, I see your meaning now. But God got me back for my sins, didn't he? That's why. That's why I missed the rose I bought for Pat. Oh no, Rolly, that was all my fault. I should never have dropped it in such a dark place. I'm so sorry, Rolly. And can you tell us, Constable, how many books did you move from one side of the road to the other in total? Oh, 4 it was. Yes, sir. Definitely 4. 3 of them dropped by Mr. Natsume, and the 4th being the one that fell from the window upstairs in the Garadep household, of course. But what made you place that book in the victim's hand? When all the others were scattered haphazardly around, I mean. Oh, well, sir, that's because that's how I found it. Oh, so she bent down to pick up the book and ended up with the knife in her back. How you found it? What do you mean? When we first ran over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So, when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. Was sure it was this book, The Lion's Pride, that the victim was holding. Oh yes, sir, no doubt about it, sir. Interesting. I thought it was an open and shut case at the time, you see. There were only the 2 people at the scene, and Pat and me both saw it happen. However which way you looked at it, it had to be the fellow who ran off who'd done it, I thought. I couldn't see the harm, really. I didn't think moving it all over the road would make a jot of difference. I suppose this is it for me now. I've had it. My lord. Yes, Lord Van Zeeks? I believe that concludes the cross-examination of the witnesses. Constable, you may withdraw. Yes, sir.
Mr. Prosecutor, sir. What will become of my Rolly? What will happen to him?
For now, you are free to go home. The police will contact you in due course.
Please, don't punish my husband. This was all my fault. It's because I'm always moaning at him for coming home late.
Leave it now, Pat. Let's go home. I'm tired.
All right then, my love.
One last thing, Constable.
Sir?
Let this be a lesson to you. In a criminal investigation, every detail matters, however insignificant it may seem to you.
Yes, sir.
Carve that lesson in your mind. And never again make the mistake of tampering with the scene of a crime.
Never again, sir. You mean to say...
Leave. Now. This trial is not yet over.
Sir?
Is he taking pity on him? That's oddly nice of the generally quite terrible man. Well, quite startling revelation, I must say. Whoever thought of a third party transplanting the entire scene of a crime like that? Indeed, my lord. Nevertheless, there are some immutable facts here. Principally, that the accused, Mr. Suzeki Natsume, is the only person who could possibly have committed this crime.
Objection!
No, I disagree. Now that we know the true scene of the incident, there is someone else. Another person who could be responsible for the knife in the victim's back.
Forgive me for being presumptuous, but I believe the prosecution is probably well aware of this possibility already.
Lord Van Zeeks, is this true? Very well. Name the person if you will, and if further investigation is warranted. The prosecution has no objection to the trial continuing. I mean, we kind of already did name her, but sure, let's play this game again, I guess.
Take that!
The defence would once again like to request the cross-examination of a new witness, my lord. Once again? My assistant made the same request earlier. In order to finally reveal the truth about this case, it's imperative that we cross-examine juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Garadab.
Me? Me? Oh dearie me!
Objection!
That request has already been denied.
Objection!
But the situation is very different now. Mrs. Garadab, answer me this.
What do you want now, you little toad?
At the time of the incident, you were engaged in a violent argument with your husband, Mr. John Garadab. In the course of the argument, a minor house fire was ignited, and to clear the smoke from the room, your husband opened a window that looks out over Briar Road.
Well, what of it?
You threw this book at your husband when he was cornered with his back against the window. Upon striking the pane of the open-topped hinged casement window, the book plummeted directly down, finding its way to what we now know to be the true scene of the incident.
Yes, and as I said, what of it?
During the argument, you were beside yourself with rage. As such, you threw not just books, but anything you could lay your hands on. So, let me ask you one more time, Mrs. Garadab. This knife, the one removed from the victim's back, have you really never laid eyes on it before?
Ah! I don't recall it.
Seriously?
Am I supposed to remember everything I picked up and threw at my husband? And anyway, the man over there in all that regalia said members of the jury needn't testify, didn't he?
Conveniently, yes.
Objection!
No. I have no recollection of saying that at all, juror number 4.
Oh! Make no mistake, you jurors are not special in any way. You are not immune to the judicial process. Could have fooled me. If you know something about this knife, madam, let the truth come out.
But that's just a common organ knife. It could have come from anywhere. We have several like that at home. If one went missing, how would you expect me to know?
What's that? Are you joking? What are you saying, please, Mrs. Garadeb? That they own loads of those knives? Now you listen to me.
I refuse to believe in all this nonsense. I couldn't bear the thought that I'd injured someone. Do you hear? I couldn't bear it.
Oh, the poor woman. And I'd be more inclined to believe that if she hadn't been slapping her husband in the face.
So yes, I want evidence. I want to see hard evidence if you're going to insist on this being my fault. You're going to have to prove to me that I threw that knife if that's what you think. Come along now, chop chop. Do your worst.
Well, Mr. Naruhodo? If I had evidence like that, believe me, I would have thrown it at her already. Then take the stand, juror.
Oh!
The prosecution does not object to the defence's request to cross-examine this woman. Thank you, Lord Van Zeeks.
I'm going to have to testify.
Juror number 4. As I'm sure you will appreciate, having observed it with your own eyes today. Witness testimony can lead to the most extraordinary truths being unearthed. Truths of which the witnesses themselves may not even have been aware.
Oh, dearie me.
So I demand your full and unadulterated testimony, Mrs. Garadeb. And mark my words, in this court of law today, we shall extract the truth. Do you concur, counsels? Certainly, my lord. Oh, that's what I'm hoping for, my lord. This is such a strange feeling. For the first time since arriving in this country, it actually feels real. I'm here, in the Old Bailey, and I'm a lawyer. Well observed. Witness, state your name and occupation.
Oh, yes, my name is Joan Garadeb. And I'm a juror and such like.
It sounds like even she doesn't know if she's a housewife or a maid or what anymore. The court has decided your testimony is required in order to clarify matters in this case. Do you understand, madam?
Yes, my lord.
You will tell the court everything that took place in your household on the evening in question. And I warn you, do not attempt to hide the truth.
Oh dearie me.
Chin up, Joni. Nothing to worry about now. Oh, hello.
Oh, I didn't know you were here, John.
He's got his medal on. And his face is normal again. Wasn't only you in the room all day, that day, old thing, was it? Rather think I ought to testify as well, don't you?
But what about your knee, dear?
Don't you worry about that. Hardly notice it. I'm not the sort of chap to leave a comrade to face disciplinary action alone.
Oh, John.
I presume you are Mr. John Garadeb? Yes, sir. Former 2nd Lieutenant of the 3rd Regiment of the 4th Northumberland Fusiliers, sir. Seen my fair share of action and now living in the quiet life, as it were. The quiet life. Were you not engaged in an incendiary battle with your spouse on the day in question? Ah, well, yes, quite. I believe this may represent a first in the proud history of the British court. Calling a juror to the witness stand is unprecedented. However, the court will hear your testimony now, juror number 4, and that of your husband. You will recount clearly and concisely the events in your house at the time of the incident in question. Sir, at once. Yes, on the day you're referring to, the wife and I did have a bit of a skirmish. Can't recall the reason now. Knocked a candlestick over and set fire to the carpet. Soon had it out though and got the window open.
Meanwhile, I was picking up whatever I could find to throw at him.
Plenty of knives around our place. Can't say I noticed if one or two went missing, I'm afraid. If that bally thing in the victim's back really was one of ours, you'll have a job proving it, I think. It sounds as though it was quite the battlefield in your household that evening. Although an entirely one-sided assault, it seems. The enemy caught us on the hop, sir. Had no choice but to dig in and take defensive measures. To be honest, if the enemy had kept shelling us for another minute, we'd have been toast. Of course, a veteran such as myself is only too aware that on every battlefield, you're just a gnat's whiskers from death at any moment. Are we still talking about a marital quarrel here? Well, I must say that I'm dubious that this testimony will shed any light on the origins of this jackknife. In combat, one's focus narrows such that surroundings are barely noticed. These witnesses may not be able to offer anything more than they have testified already. This may be a dead end. Van Zieks may well be right.
Well, whatever the chances, we only have this last cross-examination to uncover the truth, Mr. Naruhodo.
Yes, I'm afraid so. Very well, counsel. Begin your cross-examination.
Well, this should be fun.
Hold it!
The reason is what you told us yesterday, I believe.
Yes, that's right. If I remember correctly, it all started because of a note that was tucked into the pages of a book belonging to Mr. Garadab.
A rather passionate note, in fact. And Mrs. Garadab found the note, discovering her husband's little secret.
And she gave him a mighty number of slaps across the face for it, too.
What a sordid state of affairs. Hell on earth. I say, when a chap says he can't recall such things, it's common decency not to drag it all up. And besides, half of it was wide of the mark anyway.
A likely story.
These waters run very deep. And what transpired next after these multiple blows to the face?
Hold it!
And the fire also spread some items of furniture, didn't it? The bookcase, my armchair, anything of mine, really. Just so happens there was some bathwater around that evening, so I sloshed that about to put it out. A most precarious situation you put yourself in. Ours is a 3-story townhouse on the west side of the street, where the water main isn't connected yet. Oh, yikes! I have to draw water from a public water pump during the day if you need any, you see.
The lodgers are always moaning that they can't get any water at night.
Although that little mustached Japanese man buys water in bottles, I believe. The defendant, Mr. Natsume, you mean? Yes, he received a stipend for his studies, you know, from his home country.
Can you imagine being able to brew a pot of tea at all hours? He's obviously very well off.
Have you actually seen the state of the man?
I believe he uses all of his income to buy books.
Well, anyway, the point is I was able to douse the fire with water, fortunately enough.
Hold it!
Even though the room was on fire, as far as I was concerned at the time, it was more important to extinguish my anger than the flames. When a woman wants to throw, she must throw. That is most certainly not true of a Susato takedown, Mr. Naruhodo. How did she know I was thinking that? So, please cast your mind back and try to remember. Was a knife among the items that you threw at your husband that day? In all honesty, I don't recall. But I feel I must point out that I'm no monster. Let me see. Some bread, a cabbage, garlic, a towel, and a sponge, a napkin.
Excuse me.
you have something to add, sir? Mr. Garadeb? Eh? Don't shoot! Sorry, I beg your pardon. Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind? Nothing of any significance, no. Just that barrage of projectiles the old thing launched in my direction was somewhat more solid than she implies. Books, bricks, and the fire poker, I seem to recall. Ouch. And the woman's aim is uncanny. She landed a direct hit with every bally. Ah! Good grief, woman, we're not at home now. This is a court of law. Oh, dearie me. Ever so sorry, dear. What's she even doing with a teapot in here? Honestly, John, I would never have thrown such things at you, obviously. Well, take a look at this, then. How do you suppose that happened, Your pipe, sir. Had this thing in my hand as usual at the time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean out with one of her soft projectiles, she did, yes. When I went to pick the thing up, it was broken in two. I'd like to see a sponge do that sort of damage. I see, your pipe was broken. It would never have been sent flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid. Anyway, I managed to bandage the thing up for now. You are one to exaggerate, aren't you, dear? Does that mean we're going to unwrap it and see that it was a cut made with a knife? I wonder what we should make of this account. I mean, basically any time it asks me if I want to make note of something, I pretty much should make note of it, so I don't know why they keep asking, but okay. The defence believes Mr. Garadeb's remarks just now to be of great significance.
Objection!
This war veteran's words only tell us one thing. Betray a fiery wife, and pipes as well as hearts may be broken. Sentimental wisdom perhaps, but hardly worthy of adding to the formal testimony. Indeed, common sense, one might say. Might one? In that case, would you at least permit us to examine the pipe, sir? Well, I don't see why not. Oh, dearie me, there you go again, trying to ingratiate yourself with a young lady. Very well, the court will accept the gentleman's pipe as evidence. Okay. There's a small nick out of the bowl here, look. It appears to have been made relatively recently. And see how there are little scrapes and dents all over it. It's clearly a well-loved pipe. Yes, you're right. It seems to be recently that being well-loved goes hand in hand with getting some battle scars. This particular nick is catching my eye, though, because it's clearly new. So that'll be where the knife hit it. Oh. Hello, broken tip of the knife. Looks to be in a sorry state with that bandage around it, doesn't it? But for some reason it feels slightly ominous to me, like it's trying to shout a warning. Probably because it's the same blue as Mr. Garadeb's dressing gown. I suppose it must have considerable sentimental value to Mr. Garadeb, given that he's gone to the trouble of repairing it like this. Either that or he can't afford to replace it. There we go. Oh, something just twinkled inside the chamber of the pipe there. Yes, I saw it. Something stuck in there, I think. Let's turn it over and give it a shake. What's this? It's a tiny fragment of metal. It looks like the tip of a blade or something. The tip of a blade? Surely it couldn't be. Okay, that's good to know. This is the tiny piece of metal we found in the chamber of Mr. Garadeb's pipe. It looks like the tip of a blade or something. The tip of a blade? Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? I don't really know. There's just something niggling me, but I can't quite put my finger on what it is. Perhaps in that case, it would be wise to examine some of the other pieces of evidence again. Do I have to examine the knife again to make the connection? Oh, look here, Mr. Naruhodo, just at the tip. A small piece of the blade appears to be missing.
Wait, part of it's missing? I could be wrong, but I've just got a feeling. You remember this? Ah, that's the tiny fragment of metal that we found inside Mr. Garrideb's pipe. Yes, and just maybe. Oh my, it's a perfect fit! Somehow I just knew it. So is that updated now? Yeah, okay, good. I hope I didn't speak out of turn, Mr. Naruhodo. I was just feeling rather disappointed for you that your request was turned down. Oh no, it's fine. Thanks to Susato-san, we have some new evidence to work with. We should examine it carefully. Well, thank you for that rebuttal, Mr. Garrideb. Now, if we could return to the crux of the matter. What can you tell the court about the knife used to attack the victim? Here we go. You'll have a job proving it. Or will we?
Objection!
Oh, come on! There's clearly something odd about that last statement made by the witness. Good grief. We literally have all the facts in place, so I hate when this happens. I guess I'll try pressing it.
Hold it!
So you have no intention of admitting it was your knife, unless we can produce proof? Even though there is no other credible possibility of Mr. Natsume is innocent.
Objection!
You forget, my friend, that it had yet to be established that the accused is not responsible for the attack. As if I could forget. If only there was someone to know who had handled the knife. I suppose wizardry like that is just a dream. I mean, we do know. Perhaps you're thinking of fingerprinting, Mr. Naruhodo. What? You mean it's not a dream? That sort of wizardry really exists. Whenever people touch anything, they leave behind a unique pattern from their skin, or so they say. But I can't see anything. There are already countries in the world where these so-called fingerprints can be used as evidence. Lord Strongheart is currently discussing the matter at the Ministry of Justice. Yes, I believe we are rapidly approaching an era of scientific methods of investigation. Emma Skye would be delighted. But for now, we shall have to find an alternative method of proving our assertion, or assertion, that this knife found in the victim's back was originally in Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb's house. I can literally do that. If only I could transplant this whole incident several years in the future. You don't need to, you have the evidence. It's the extent of their testimony, is it? What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, I think we've heard all this before, to be honest. I can't say I'm particularly confident that we'll be able to prove anything new from this testimony. We literally already have, the game just won't accept it yet. But in this cross-examination, it's absolutely essential that we establish how this knife came to be at the scene of the incident. Yes, I know. Well, I suppose I could try presenting his pipe. I'm sure both of them must be feeling very worried. Worried that it was in fact a knife belonging to one of them that caused the victim's injury. If we could find even a tiny shred of evidence to support that theory, it would clinch this trial for us. It would explain everything. Yes, it would. So for Suzeki-san's sake, we must. We must find that last crucial piece of evidence. I have. Let's try presenting his pipe, I guess. Oops. Or I'll accidentally scroll through everything again. It's way too easy to do. Skipping through the dialogue, because I don't need it now. Not that it was all that helpful in the first place. See what happens if we do this.
Objection!
Okay, that's not it either. Great! I hate it when Ace Attorney games do this. It's like I have the evidence right here, just let me hecking explain it.
Hold it!
Oh, we did this. Good grief, I pressed the wrong button again.
See how tuned into this I am right now while I'm mildly irritated. I'm going to try presenting the broken bit of the knife and see if that works. Well, I suppose I ought to press that other statement. Why did this have to be such a long segment? Okay, an eternity of skipping through text later.
Hold it!
Sorry, would you care to elaborate? Nothing to say, really. Rather partial to a spot of carving, you see. Pipes and whatnot, fishing tackle, you know the sort of thing. It's a passion we both share. I like to carve little wooden trinkets too. And then there's my leatherwork. Sorry to say we're always losing knives about the place. We have dozens of the things. They sell them at the market sometimes, 20 for the price of 19. Needless to say, I snap them up. John prefers to use 2 knives at mealtimes too, instead of a knife and fork. Why would anyone want to do that? Now, Joan, we don't want people thinking I'm some kind of savage. Here we go again with the scoldings. Why are they being so evasive? I imagine it's because they don't want to believe it. They can't bear the thought that it might have been one of their knives that injured the victim. Which is entirely understandable, of course, but still. Okay, so we'll try presenting the broken bit of knife and see if that's the one that works.
Objection!
Oh, there we go, of course. Mr. Garadeb, could I ask you to take a good look at this, please? You can ask, but I can't see a bally thing. You can't? Used to call me Dead-Eyed Deb back in the regiment, of course, but that was some time ago now. Even when I'm trying to enjoy a large print book by the fire these days. I struggle to tell a B from a D and a P from a Q, to be honest. Oh, he does. Dearie me, it's rather wearing being asked about every other letter in every other word. You must be very dizzy. What is that? A tiny scrap of metal? Yes, almost certainly from the tip of a blade. And what may appear at first to be just a tiny scrap is in fact a crucial piece of evidence. Interesting. And where did the defence come by this evidence? It was lodged in the chamber of Mr. Garadeb's pipe. My pipe, you say? By Jove, I wonder how that got there. And what precisely does the fragment of metal signify, Counsel? Are you suggesting that it is in some way related to the matter of the stabbing on Briar Road? I am. What? When put together with another piece of evidence already in the court record, I believe this tiny fragment of metal will unravel the whole truth of this case, my lord. You appear rather confident in that extraordinary statement, Counsel. Very well then, present the pertinent evidence to the court.
Take that!
I really could have explained this at the time if you'd let me present it earlier, but oh well. This is the knife that was found in the victim's back. If you look closely, you will see that there is a small piece at the tip of the blade that is missing. A common issue with the inferior blades sold at unsavoury street markets. Criminals who use them regularly leave the tips lodged in their victims' bones. And what of this particular knife? No doubt its tip has suffered a similar fate, now languishing somewhere near the spine of the victim.
Objection!
No, that's not the case. The tip of this particular knife blade is the very fragment of metal we discovered in the chamber of Mr. Garadeb's pipe. Ah! Ugh. Good grief, Lord Van Zeeks. I don't believe it. The knife from the crime scene and this fragment of metal are a perfect match. Good golly gosh! Order! Is this some sort of Eastern sorcery? This is no magic, my lord. This is a miracle. A miracle? So Van Zeeks has figured it out, has he? Counsel, explain this extraordinary coincidence at once. Yes, my lord. The crucial point we have to ask ourselves here is when did the fragment of metal find its way inside Mr. Garadeb's pipe? Something that was clarified for us in the most recent witness testimony. Had this thing in my hand as usual at the time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean out with one of her soft projectiles, she did. Yes. It would never have been sent flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid. Oh, dearie me. During the argument between these two that occurred just as the victim was on the pavement below, Mrs. Garadeb flung this knife at her husband. However, the knife missed Mr. Garadeb, instead striking the pipe in his hand at the time, which caused the tip to break off, of course. Good lord. Yes, and that is when the tiny tip of the blade found its way inside Mr. Garadeb's pipe. The chances of that are 1,000,000 to 1. Yeah, this is the most coincidental case in the world, I swear. And yet there's no other credible explanation for how the tip of the blade ended up in your pipe. Then, after losing its tip, the knife ricocheted off the pipe and flew out of the open window. In short, this knife, which fell from the window of the Garadeb's house, is the very same knife that struck the victim in the middle of the back on the street below. Oh gosh, oh dear, oh no!
Objection!
A full-bodied theory, I'll give you that. A complex bouquet of seemingly trivial points, plausibly arranged to create an almost possible vintage. Of course, he's a wine snob. Allow me to toast my learned friend's characteristic approach to bottling his argument. Sorry? But after all, it is just a theory. The bottle, I fear, is corked. Because, you see, it's spoilt by an insurmountable inconsistency. This will be him wanting to know how it got into the woman's back. But that's because she bent down to pick up the book. I'm ahead of you, my mate, my dude. My strangely handsome prosecutor man. Lord Van Zieks, explain yourself. What is this inconsistency you claim to have identified? An inconsistency of the simplest nature, my lord. The victim was found with the knife planted in the middle of her back. Yes, in her... Ah! That's right, you silly little man. Now, Joan, old thing, what are you getting so excited about? Let us consider the basic facts of the case once more. The victim was walking along the pavement before being stabbed in the back and falling to the ground. If the knife that struck her had fallen from above, there's no possible way it could have planted itself in the victim's back. Yeah, I already solved this one ages ago, it's fine. Order. Quite right, you see, that's exactly right. If the knife had fallen on her from above, it would have struck her on the top of her head. Well, he's lost for words, look. I knew it. I never liked his theory in the first place. I don't know, though, what really did happen? It would appear that the defence has made rather a spectacular blunder. If the theory has even one inconsistency, it cannot stand. Your theory, my friend, is history. No, it's not. And we have the evidence to prove it. We were so close, I could see the truth. I was so sure we were on the right track. But now the way has been blocked completely by just one simple inconsistency. Or in other words, we simply need to eliminate that one inconsistency. The theory will stand. Mr. Zato. You mustn't worry, Mr. Naruhodo. You were just caught off guard, that's all, and your mind went blank. But if the path you were on is indeed correct, then a way will present itself. The key to this is in the court record, I'm sure. All the information you need is there. And you're correct. It seems you have nothing to say, my friend. Well, your silence speaks volumes. A tacit acceptance that your theory is fatally flawed. Nah.
Objection!
This inconsistency doesn't mean I was on the wrong track. It means that I need to sharpen my mind and dig deeper for the truth. It's a test. Yes. If the knife fell on the victim from above, there's no way that it could have hit her in the middle of her back. Under normal circumstances, that is. What are you implying? Counsel? There is a piece of evidence in the court record that can explain this inconsistency. That can explain how the knife that fell from above could have pierced the victim's back. We already have the answer. Goodness! Utter madness. Surely this must be the last time. Counsel, present the evidence of which you speak. This is the last inconsistency, the final piece in the puzzle. If I can successfully make sense of this, the truth will be laid bare at last. The evidence that explains how the falling knife became lodged in the victim's back is... Ta-da!
Take that!
This, the fourth book found at the scene. This is the final piece of evidence the defence will present. The burnt book. Is that on Mr. Garadeb's book? Yes, and to understand its significance, we have to consider how it came to be at the scene in the first place. This photographic print clearly shows the book in question, and the victim holding it in her hand. But as we all now know, it was the police constable that put the book between his fingers like that. Quite so, as part of his wholesale transplanting of the crime scene to the opposite side of the road. That's true, however. As part of his testimony, Constable Beat made an extremely enlightening statement on that point. But what made you place that book in the victim's hand? Oh well, sir, that's because that's how I found it. When we first ran over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. In other words, the victim had already picked the book up of her own volition. And clearly that must have been before she suffered the knife wound. Well, I should say so. After being attacked with a knife, I don't imagine she'd have been doing much of anything. So the question becomes, why did the victim have that book in her hand? By jingo! I think I'm beginning to see what may have happened now. Oh dearie me! We know that the book fell from the top floor of the Garadeb household onto the pavement below, at precisely the moment that the victim was walking past. Yes, at exactly that moment. The young woman was walking along the street in the light fog, when all of a sudden, a book fell right in front of her. The book I threw? Yes, Mrs. Garadeb. And what do you think the woman did? What would you do if you were walking along and suddenly a book landed in front of you on the pavement? Well, I really can't imagine it. But I suppose she might have reached down and picked the book up. Yes, that is exactly what the woman in fact did. She picked up the book. Oh, heavens! And when the woman reached down to pick the fallen book up, what position would her back have been in? That's right, facing the sky, completely and utterly defenceless. Then, in the very next moment, while the woman was still bent over picking up the book, the next object fell from the room above, the jackknife, straight into the middle of her back. And at that same time, walking by chance directly behind Miss Green, was the defendant, Mr. Suzeki Natsume. Well, I never! It appeared to Mr. Natsume that the woman simply collapsed on the floor. In the dark and the fog, he didn't see the knife falling on her from above.
Ah!
And from the other direction, the constable and his wife saw no one but the victim and her apparent attacker. So there never was a real culprit to run from the scene in the first place. No, this was nothing more than a series of unlikely events that culminated in an unfortunate accident. Yeah, this is why we don't yeet knives, everyone. And that is the real truth behind this case. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Garadab. The very first time you showed me that knife, I had my suspicions. I wondered if perhaps it might have been something like that. There, old bean.
Poor Mrs. Garadab. Of course, I never meant for anything of the sort to happen, but it was all my fault, wasn't it? I take full responsibility. I let my anger get the better of me. I threw that book. And I threw the knife as well. John, dear.
It's all right, I know.
I'm ever so sorry. Truly. I'm sorry.
Yikes. Well then. That's kind of depressing. Lord Van Zeeks, what news of Mrs. Garadab? She's been taken to the infirmary. It would appear that today's events had left her in an especially flustered state. However, I believe she will recover in due course. There is no cause for concern. Yes, unbeknownst to themselves, they caused what could have easily have been a terrible tragedy. They shall have to prepare themselves for the consequences of their actions. There is some good news, however, my lord. I have just had word from the hospital where the victim is being treated. Her condition is improving steadily, and the doctor believes she will regain consciousness soon. It's strange. We've been talking about the victim all this time, but we've never once met her.
How wonderful! The woman is out of danger, it seems.
Yes, that is good news. So, Mr. Suzeki Natsume. It was quite nice not really having to speak to him during the trial.
Yes.
On behalf of my fellow countrymen, I would like to take this opportunity to beg your pardon, sir. You came from your distant eastern homeland to study our great British culture, and have been repaid with immeasurable unkindness. Please accept our heartfelt apologies.
No, it is me who should be begging your pardon.
Oh no, Mr. Natsume.
That evening, when the young woman just collapsed on the pavement before my eyes, I jumped to the wrong conclusion again in my confusion.
What conclusion, sir?
I was sure that the woman was dead.
Yes, Constable Beats said the same thing, didn't he? He thought she'd been killed too. I suppose she must have looked completely lifeless.
It's been about a year since I arrived in Great Britain now, but I still can't get used to life here. I can't relax. I'm sure there are evil spirits lurking in the fog. Like they're haunting me.
Poor Suzeki-san. His imagination really has got the better of him.
Yes, poor man. So when it happened, I thought the young woman had been taken by the fog spirits. I should never have dropped my books like that and run away. I should have called for help, for a doctor, for the police. Instead, I've managed to create a rift in the relationship of trust between our two empires. and for that I am truly sorry. One could indeed say that some sort of mischievous spirit has been at work here, I think. One that created a chain of unfortunate mishaps. We will be fooled by the spirit and led to false conclusions. But thanks to Lord Van Zieks and our young lawyer here from the east, that chain has now been broken and the spirit exorcised. I heartily commend you both. Oh! Now then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Yes, my lord? In concluding this trial, I must ask one last time for your decisions regarding the offence's culpability. Are you ready to present your findings to the court? As the foreman of this jury, I can assure you we've reached a fair and just conclusion. I do declare the truth can be extremely cruel at times. Well, I didn't suspect the woman next to me, that's for sure. Sitting in for the old bean while she's out of action, you know, but I know what her decision would be. Does this mean I'll finally be able to get out of here and start work? Well, it's about time. I say, I'll have a corker of a story to tell the grandchildren when I get home, won't I? Very well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hereby demand your final decisions. Mr. Foreman, so we're actually doing this time. Okay.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Very well, Mr. Suzeki Natsume, I hereby pronounce you. There we go. Fine and glad this case is over. Ah yes, back to the fire hazards. And finally, Mr. Natsume. Oh, yes, Lord Sir? You are now a free man once more. It is my hope that you will continue to further your education in British culture. And may you never again be brought before me. Yes, so we can hope. Oh yes, sir, of course. On my life, I swear I'll never set foot in a courtroom again. I'm transported to tears. Thank you, counsels. Court is adjourned. What aftermath are we gonna get? Oh, locum. Wait, you mean me? Of course! Is there another locum here? Is there even one? Compared to the original locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, your name has become rather short, hasn't it? What's wrong with using my actual name? Oh, at last, I'm free! I'm free! Joyful, joyous, jubilant jubilation! Heady, hearty happiness, hurrah! Oh, I am pleased. Mr. Natsume is delighted. Would it be so hard just to say that, then? Locum, you did it! You saved me from the brink! Well, what happened to the poor woman was in no way your fault, after all. I'm just glad everyone can see that now. No, not that! Lovely, loyal locum lawyer! Yes? I mean, as I said before, I have just never got used to life here in Great Britain. Every time I look over my shoulder, I see foreigners. I see towering brick buildings. And from high up windows, I see them looking down on me, laughing. Look at that little hunchback. Oh dear, I'm sure it's all in your head, Mr. Natsume. But today, you, locum lawyer, gave my gloom the boot. You stood firm behind that baronial bench before all those babbling British. You battled to the bitter end, laying bare the baffling truth. And when I beheld the blinding fireworks among the beams of the Bailey's roof, I bellowed, "Behold the best barrister ever born!" Well, that's very flattering, and we're very pleased for you. This has given me a wonderful anecdote to recount to my old friends back in Japan.
An anecdote? Is that what's to become of all my hard work? Ah, there you are, my dear fellows. I apologise for keeping you waiting. I rose rather late this morning. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, what a pleasure to see you. I see I am here not a moment too soon. A disaster has been averted, I'm glad to say. Oh. The trial shall begin presently, Mr. Naruhodo, and I wish you the very best of luck. Yeah, about that, Sholmes. It's just finished. What? No! Then my haste was in vain. Ah! It's you! Herlock Sholmes! Oh, have we met, sir? This is Mr. Natsume, the man you had arrested, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, I see. I failed to recognize you at first. Our previous encounters have taken place in the gloom, either of your bleak lodgings or that prison cell. I simply couldn't place that curious face in the light. Charming. This is all your fault, Herlock Sholmes. You're the reason I had to go through this terrible ordeal. I'm going to give you a piece of my mind. My apologies, sir, but I assure you, I have placed you now. You're the fellow who abandoned that poor young lady and ran off, are you not? Ah. Had she been taken to hospital more urgently? I feel perhaps she would have regained consciousness by now. Oh. But it was unavoidable, I'm sure. We are but human after all. Anyone would have been shaken by such an experience. I do feel very badly about how I behaved. Well, never mind. Now then, what was it that you wanted to say to me, sir? Nothing. Priceless. Oh, I am sorry, really, but... that was quite priceless. Poor Suzeki-san. Still, on the bright side, you've had an extremely entertaining experience without paying a penny. And, it would seem, you were not even found guilty. But there is no bright side. Whatever do you mean, Mr. Natsume? Even after this, I'm still cursed by the spirits, and now by the Reaper. Ah, Lord Van Zeeks. I haven't forgotten, you know, what facing that man in court means. Even if you're found not guilty, you're still doomed. It will all be alright, it will all be alright, Mr. Natsume. If the Reaper appears trying to make trouble, I will protect you. Hey-ya! Oh, it's been a while since that happened. With a perfectly executed Susato takedown. Much as I like being turned on my head, a bit of warning might be nice next time, Miss Susato. So, Mr. Natsume, what do you intend to do now? You mentioned something about recounting your experiences to your friends back in Japan? Yes, I intend to return to my homeland soon. Oh. It has already been a year since I arrived here in Great Britain. I visited universities, libraries, bookshops. I've been honoured with the tutelage of professors. I've learned so much about the wealth of literature here, and the city it has shaped. And I've come to realise that it is my calling to sail home and tell my fellow countrymen about it. That's very touching, Mr. Natsume. Or, in perhaps less veiled terms, you wish to withdraw halfway around the world to escape the terror of the Reaper's curse. And it would be interesting to see if that worked. That's not it at all! The more I learn of literature, the more this strange feeling claws at my insides. I feel compelled to return to my roots and attempt to pen a work of my own. Oh, I see. A work of literature by Suzeki-san. Could be an interesting read. And what about Miss Susato and yourself, Mr. Naruhodo? Sorry, what about us? Will you return to Japan alongside your moustached compatriot? Why would we? A week has not yet passed since we arrived in London.
And only now does it feel as though we have finally found our feet.
And you are accommodated in a hotel at present, are you not? That's right, but we need to find lodgings before it bankrupts us.
I've calculated we can only afford another 10 nights before our entire budget is exhausted.
Well then, you can take my lodgings. Oh, the windowless room. Ah, but what it lacks in windows, it more than makes up for with a floor, a ceiling, and walls. Great. And of course, I'd be happy to leave behind the accursed evil spirit.
Oh my, an evil spirit?
Oh yes, it tries to suffocate you while you sleep. It's an infallible wake-up call. Again, that's probably the gas heater. Well, think about it, if that's alright. Perhaps I can offer a more welcome alternative. Would you consider taking lodgings with me?
Really?
Well, a vacancy has conveniently presented itself. It is up in the attic, I might add. Are you sure it isn't just a storage loft? I spoke with the landlady this very morning on the matter of price, and Iris is cleaning the room as we speak. You must come at once. I presume you have no luggage to speak of.
Oh, this is simply wonderful! What an honour to be invited to taking lodgings in the great detective's office's attic! I'm too overcome for words.
So suggesting we look elsewhere is out then. And it's settled. Iris will prepare a welcome dinner this evening. And you must come too, Mr. Natsume. I insist.
I don't know what to say, but thank you. But yes! Wonderful! Then I'll go and complete the paperwork for your formal release, Mr. Natsume. It shan't take long.
Somebody's happy.
Locum, I knew that you wouldn't let me down. I'm truly delighted to have met you here in London.
Likewise, Mr. Natsume. It's been a privilege meeting you too. It's a shame that we're going to have to say goodbye so soon.
Well, I've come to realise that I belong in Japan. But Locum, we'll meet again one day.
Yes, I'm sure. And hopefully by then I'll be a successful lawyer.
Hopefully by then I'll be a successful author.
Well, my dear fellow, our carriage appears to have arrived. Shall we go, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, Mr. Sholmes. I've little doubt Mr. Natsume will be released in time for dinner this evening. And so, with Suzeki-san's innocence successfully established, we rode with Mr. Sholmes to what was to become our new home, 221B Baker Street. Still amazed they didn't change that. Anything ominous happening at the end of this? So this
is to be our new office, yes.
Our office? I rather like the sound of that.
Me too. It's simply wonderful, isn't it?
I hope you can see this, Kazuma. It's only a small step. But I'd like to think we're getting a little closer to your dream now. So, my dear fellows, do you like the place?
Ah, Mr. Sholmes. Yes, thank you so much. It's a delightful room, Mr. Sholmes. I simply adore it.
Good, I'm pleased to hear it. Iris and I are delighted to welcome you.
I hope everyone's hungry. It's nearly time for dinner. We'll eat as soon as Mr. Natsume arrives. We have a lot to celebrate. Iris, you must let me help you. All right then, Susie. You can be in charge of the salad. Splendid.
So, Mr. Naruhodo, how does it feel? To have your own office in the capital? It's very exciting, actually. I can't help wondering what adventures await us. Those were precisely my sentiments when I first established my office at this premises. Until I discovered the dark truth about the City of London, that is. Sorry. London is a glorious place, full of wonder, opportunity, prosperity, and mirth. But the brightest of lights casts the darkest of shadows. And it's got serious all of a sudden. Shadows? What do you mean? Well, I believe you're well aware of the murkiness that lies behind London's facade already. So once again, Mr. Naruhodo. Welcome to London. Ominous, okay. Thanks, Sholmes. Of course, at the time, I had no idea of the significance of those words Mr. Sholmes so casually spoke. But it wasn't long before my turn came to lift the facade and see the true depth of the murk that lay behind it. TBC? Yep. Well, what a case. I mean, that was a weird one. Also, have we had a single satisfactory conclusion yet in this game? Because we had case 1 where we still don't know why it happened. We had case 2 which was just horrifically bleak. Case 3 where we still don't really know what the answer actually was. And then this case where it's like, oh, that was just a horrible accident again. Great. What happened to straightforward murders? She says. Really shouldn't be wanting that, but I guess we'll see what we end up with next time. What title have we got? The Adventure of the Unspeakable Story. Sounds dramatic. And we will begin that story next time, so thank you for watching. And until next time, goodbye.